Today, I thought it'd be fun to do a quick little video about my favorite coming of age books. Um, I'm not going to do any reviews or anything like that. I'll give a little information because some of them I plan on doing a deep dive into later, tell you why they are my favorites. But I just thought it would be fun to show you the ones that I love. I have 10, my top 10, and then I have 5, I guess, honorable mentions, depending on, or top 15, depends on how you want to look at it. So let's start with the one that everybody's read, Lord of the Flies. Even today, 70 years later, it's a brutal read. It's not like an 80s horror film or anything, but it's still a tough read. And when it was written in 54, imagine what the people thought of it then. So all of these I recommend for anybody who wants to do coming of age. So definitely get this one if you haven't read it, which would be odd. Second is, this one's a tough one. I saw the movie first in 1972. The book was written in 69, and it is a rough read, especially if you're uncomfortable reading about 1950s America, which, though it doesn't say when it takes place, some of the things going on at the time kind of points to that era. It's got a lot of racism and tough family drama. So, but that is Sounder by William A. Armstrong. It is tough. I saw the movie first and then ended up reading it. And Old Yeller has nothing on this, because the only character in the book who has a name is the dog, Sounder. Everybody else we don't know if the author was trying to do something generic or he didn't want to name anything, because it could be anybody's story who had to live through this kind of thing at the time. So this is one I plan on doing a deep dive later on in my videos. So Sounder. The next one is Fade by Robert Cormier. Some might be familiar with this stuff, like the Chocolate War that he did. A lot of young adult stuff back in the, I believe, 60s and 70s. This is from 1989. And a quick synopsis is that it's about a boy who can fade or disappear, become invisible. And the first half of the book takes place in 1938. The second half is more of him in the future and what he's has and hasn't done with this ability. So I recommend it, but especially for the first half. The book itself is very good, but the first half is incredible. One of my more recent reads, and one that I had so much fun in and harken back to my childhood in so many ways. If you were a kid in the 80s, you will love this book. And that is The Saturday Night Ghost Club by Craig Davison, who is I think his real name, his pseudonym is Nick Cutter, who writes some very graphic, very, very good horror novels. This came out in 2018, and I don't want to give anything away, but like I said, if you grew up as a kid in the 80s, you will love this book. And the most recently published one that I read, very dark, from one of my favorite modern horror writers, and that is Black Mouth by Ronald Malfi. Man, this one's rough. It splits its time between the past and the present, but it's about a group of kids getting involved in some dark magic, and very dark, brutal. But if you love a good dark horror novel that has a coming of age element to it, you can't go wrong with this one. Now, my top 10 I'll have on hardcover, and I was going to do them alphabetically, but I thought it would be fun to do them in the order of favorite. So let's do that. The first one came out in 72. I think I read it maybe in the late 70s. There was a movie, once again, a movie I saw first, but it made me want to read the book. And that is The Other by Thomas Tryon. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it, but it's about a some twin boys who get into some trouble, let's say, and there's some supernatural elements to it. It's I don't want to give anything away. Set in the 30s, I believe, and yeah, you will either love the boys or it'll make you afraid of kids because it's that good. And the movie's not bad either. The next one, I definitely saw the movie first in 2007, and it is my favorite. It became my favorite vampire movie of all time. And I'm talking about Let Me In, or as it was originally titled, Let the Right One in its native Sweden. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. I believe it's Lindquist. So, but the American edition, when this was published in 2000, the book was published originally in 2004. This was published in 2007, and it was supposed to be Let the Right One In, which the Swedish version of the film says. But for here, it was renamed Let Me In, and then when they did a second film, a remake, that's what it was called. But for those not familiar, it's about a young boy and the young female vampire that he meets, and the things that his growing up. Um, Oscar is the boy's name. His growing up in Sweden is just it's a tough childhood, like most of us had. But when he meets the vampire, it it's interesting, very interesting. The places they go with the story, highly recommended. I have to admit that I actually prefer the movie version a little bit more. That's a rare thing to like the movie better than the book. But if you want a deeper look into everything that's going on, you can't go wrong with this. The next one is one of three, Stephen King. But then I grew up with Stephen King, so it's probably unsurprising. But this one is technically not a novel, it's a novella, and that is Different Seasons. His collection of four novellas were published in 1982. And the particular story I'm talking about is The Body, which was the third story in here. And it was made into a movie that probably most of us know with River Phoenix and others, Will Wheaton, and it's 1986, I believe. It's called Let Me, or Stand By Me. Oh, I wish I could edit this, but anyway. And although the story is set in the 50s, I think any boy and girls as well could understand the troubles and the adventure and stuff. So yeah, I do recommend the whole book, but particularly The Body. The next one is from 1991. It's called Summer of Night by Dan Simmons. Um, Dan Simmons, I think, is a brilliant writer. He's written horror and science fiction, crime and mystery. But this one takes place in the 1960s as a group of boys growing up in a small town, which most of these are. So this group of boys in here, I think it's 1960. Yeah. They have to grow up, and the tough things they have to deal with, and as well as some supernatural elements that get involved that end up affecting their lives. And it's a dense book, but it's a wonderful book, and I highly recommend it. Next one here, Stephen King again. But this one he wrote with another of my favorite authors, Peter Straub, The Talisman. Supposedly there's going to be a TV series, but we'll see. And of course, this is one that kind of dips into fantasy, like the Dark Tower books and stuff, where he flips from this world into another world, but in an attempt to save his dying mother. It's a you can't get much more coming of age than that, I don't think. It was written in 1984, and most everybody is probably familiar with this, but yeah, I would love to see a proper, let's say, adaptation of this where they stick to the, because I mean it's a great story. I wouldn't even set it in the future. Leave it in 1984. Wonderful book. This one, at one time, it's written by one of my favorite authors, and it's gotten a lot of acclaim over the years, rightfully so. And that is Boy's Life by Robert McCammon. I'll tell you, hopefully it's not a spoiler. This came out in 1990, but there's actually no magic in this, not any literal magic, but it's the story of a 12-year-old boy in the 1960s and his magical life, the things he sees and the adventures he gets into. I mean, it's probably one of the best representations of what it means to be a 12-year-old boy in the world. I can't say enough about it. And this is definitely one I'm going to take a deep dive into in the future. Next one is Stephen King again, but probably not shocking. It is this monstrosity, It. Now, although half the book takes place in the future or in the character's present, the first half takes place in their childhood. Everybody's probably seen the movies, and I love the current iterations of it. But I mean, this is just fun. It has everything you could want in a horror novel, in a coming of age novel, and Pennywise in this is just awesome. One of the best villains, in my opinion, in horror history. This book is 1,100 plus pages long, so it is a very dense book. But if you want to take your time and get through this and read this, if you've seen the movies but you still want to read the source material, you cannot go wrong with this. Okay, top 3. Now, this one is a special edition that came out from Bloodletting Press in 2003. Yes, but the book was written in 1991 by one of my favorite horror authors, whom I collect everything by pretty much, and that is Neverland by Douglas Clegg. It's about a boy and his mother who spend the summer with the cousins, and the adventures the kids get into. This is a rough book, especially if you like, or whether you like scary stories about children. This one is, it's either going to make you want to run away or make you want to know more, because it is a dark book, but it is wonderfully written, and I just loved it when I read it. I'm like, man, this could have been me if the supernatural was real, or if you believe it's real, whichever. And but this is another one I'm definitely going to do a deep dive into eventually. So yeah, definitely a good book. Now the next one, of course, is one that we probably all read, and it was written in 1962 by probably one of the most, my favorite author, and probably many of people's who watch this, it's one of their favorites, and that is Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. I obviously do not have the original because I could not afford it, but this is a Folio Society edition from 2020. Beautiful, beautiful cover. So, and for those not familiar, two boys in the 1930s visit a carnival and strange things happen. Wonderful book. Certainly a necessity for anybody who wants to read a coming of age book. Number 2 there. And now, my favorite, most people probably aren't going to understand this, but when I read this book, it came out in 1980, it didn't hit me the way it did later on. I've read it multiple times. It's one of the books, I've read this book more than any other book. I should know it heart by heart, and I've read it, I've listened to an audiobook, and it's just, I don't know if anybody's going to agree with me who has read it, but this is my favorite coming of age book and probably my favorite novel of all time. Shadowland by Peter Straub. This is, it's been described, is Harry Potter for grown-ups, and it is dark. Got two boys who spend the summer together and talk about magic and try magic. It is, there's a framing story about two of the boys in the future who are, and then they talk about the past, and the past is, I don't know how to say much more about it, but they, two boys have trouble in school, end up spending the summer together, and deal with magic that is not as, nowhere near as fun and exciting as it is in Harry Potter. It's dark and disturbing, and I love it. I love this book, and I am definitely going to do a video in the future diving into this. I have every single edition of this book except the outrageously priced Centipede Press book. I think it's Centipede Press. It does one. But yeah, this is the book I recommend to anyone who wants to read about, coming of age and dealing with, real magic in the world. So, number 1. That's it. This has gone on a lot longer than I thought it would. Hopefully you like it, and I promise in the future, although I'm not very good at reviews, I do promise in the future that I'm going to do a deep dive into a couple of these, especially Shadowland, so that others can be like, hey, that's something I want to read. So if you read any of these and you have certain feelings about them, let me know, and we can talk about them later. I'll see you next time.